The massive Drachnid warship materialized above New York City on a quiet Sunday morning, its crystalline surface refracting sunlight into prismatic patterns across the skyline. Dr. Elena Santos stood at her laboratory window in the Metropolitan Music Research Institute, coffee cup frozen halfway to her lips as she watched the vessel's impossible geometries shift and realign themselves. Dr. Santos, her assistant Marcus burst through the door, tablet clutched to his chest. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. The holographic message appeared simultaneously in every major city worldwide. A Drachnid commander, their iridescent scales arranged in intricate patterns denoting military rank, spoke in perfectly synthesized English. People of Earth, the Drachnid Empire claims this system as part of its ordained expansion. Submit to our rule within 48 hours, or face eradication. We are not cruel. Your surrender will be rewarded with a place among our servant species. Elena barely heard the rest of the message. Her attention was fixed on the subtle vibrations emanating from the ship, subsonic frequencies that made her bones ache. As an expert in acoustic physics and music theory, she recognized something fascinating in those frequencies. "Marcus," she said quietly, "get me everything we have on cetacean communication patterns, and call Dr. Zhang from the Sydney Opera House Labs." While global leaders debated military options and evacuation plans, Elena's team worked through the night. They analyzed the Drachnid ship's vibrations, comparing them to their database of Earth's natural frequencies, from whale songs to geological resonances. "Look at this." Dr. Zhang's excited voice came through the holographic display. "Their ship's structural frequencies. They're almost identical to the resonant patterns we mapped in the blue whale study last year." Elena nodded, her exhaustion forgotten as pieces clicked into place. Their entire technology seems based on crystalline structures. And crystals respond to specific frequencies. Marcus finished, eyes widening. But why would an advanced species build their ships out of something so potentially vulnerable? "Because they've never encountered anything like Earth's music," Elena replied. "Think about it. Their language, their technology, even their biology seems based on mathematical precision. But Earth's biosphere is different. We evolve surrounded by organic sound patterns, from bird songs to ocean waves. Our music isn't just entertainment. It's part of our biological heritage." The next day, as military leaders presented plans for a desperate defense, Elena stepped forward in the UN emergency session. "We don't need weapons," she announced. "We need musicians." Her proposal seemed absurd at first, but as she explained the science, how Earth's musical traditions had uniquely prepared humanity to understand and manipulate the very frequencies the Drachnids relied upon, hope began to replace desperation. Within hours, concert halls worldwide were converted into research centers. Classical musicians worked alongside physicists, composing pieces that would resonate with Drachnid crystal technology. Indigenous sound healers shared ancient knowledge of frequency work. Electronic music producers contributed their expertise in subsonic frequencies. When the 48-hour deadline approached, Earth was ready, not with missiles or bombs, but with something far more powerful: the combined musical heritage of humanity. As the Drachnid ships moved into attack position, concert halls worldwide began broadcasting. The composition began with whale songs, their ancient frequencies reaching into space. Then human voices joined in, a global choir singing in harmonies carefully calculated to match Drachnid crystalline frequencies. Finally, the full orchestras entered, their music carrying mathematical patterns that spoke directly to the alien ship structure. The effect was immediate and stunning. The Drachnid vessel's crystalline surfaces began to shimmer and pulse with new colors. Their weapon ports, charged for planetary bombardment, dimmed and closed. The massive ships seemed to dance in space, responding to Earth's music like giant instruments. When the Drachnid commander's next transmission came through, their voice pattern had changed. Gone was the cold military precision. Instead, there was something new in their tone, something that sounded almost like wonder. "People of Earth, They said, "What is this power you wield? Our sensors indicate no weapons, yet you have touched the very essence of our being. We request a dialogue." Elena smiled as she prepared for humanity's first real conversation with the Drachnids. Sometimes the best defense wasn't a weapon at all. It was a reminder that the universe held more beauty and complexity than any empire could control through force alone. Humanity had just changed the course of galactic history not through superior firepower, but through the universal language of music. And this was only the beginning. The Grand Hall of the Metropolitan Opera House had never hosted a more unusual orchestra. Traditional instruments shared space with quantum frequency modulators, while whale song translators hummed alongside ancient didgeridoos. Dr. Elena Santos watched as musicians and scientists made final adjustments for humanity's first formal musical exchange with the Drachnids. "The crystalline resonance chambers are calibrated," Marcus reported, checking readings on his tablet. "But are we sure about this? Inviting their delegation into one of our major cultural centers." Elena understood his concern. The dozen Drachnid representatives who had just entered the hall were an imposing sight. Their scaled bodies towered over the human musicians, and their formal attire included crystalline components that hummed with barely contained energy. "Music isn't just sound to them," Elena explained, watching the Drachnid scales shift color in response to the ambient acoustics. "We're beginning to understand that it's fundamental to their biology. Their entire civilization is built on crystalline harmonics." The lead Drachnid, who had introduced themselves as Harmony Master Xerix, approached the human delegation. Their scales rippled with bands of deep blue and gold, colors that Elena's team had learned indicated intense scientific curiosity. "We have analyzed your initial sonic demonstration," Xerix announced, their translator converting the crystalline tones of their natural speech into English. "It should have been impossible. Our warship's resonance matrices are encrypted with patterns derived from the fundamental harmonics of the universe." Elena smiled. "That's exactly what we want to discuss. Your ships respond to universal mathematical patterns, but Earth's music isn't just mathematics. It's mathematics shaped by emotion, by culture, by the very evolution of life on our planet." At her signal, the orchestra began to play. They started with Bach, mathematical precision wrapped in human emotion. The Drachnid scales flickered rapidly as they processed this new combination of order and feeling. Then came jazz, mathematics transformed into improvisation, structure giving birth to spontaneity. Xerix's crystalline components began to pulse in sync with the music. "Impossible," they whispered. "You've discovered the third resonance." The music stopped. "The third resonance?" Elena asked. "In our understanding of universal harmonics, there are two fundamental resonances: the crystal song that forms the basis of our technology, and the void discord that we use in warfare. But our ancient texts spoke of a third resonance, one that could bridge the gap between order and chaos. We thought it was a myth." The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't just found a way to defend Earth. We'd stumbled upon something the Drachnids had been seeking for millennia. Over the next several hours, the exchange deepened. Human musicians demonstrated different musical traditions, while Drachnid harmony masters shared the basics of their crystalline compositions. Each species discovered they had something profound to learn from the other. "Your music contains mathematics we've never imagined," a Drachnid scientist admitted, their scales shimmering with excitement. "Each human culture approaches universal harmonics differently, finding patterns we never knew existed." But the real breakthrough came when a young violinist began playing a piece she'd composed specifically for the occasion. As her music filled the hall, the crystalline components of the Drachnid's attire began to glow. Rather than fighting the resonance, the Drachnids let their technology sync with the music. The result was astonishing: human violin and Drachnid crystals creating something entirely new. "This is more than cultural exchange," Xerix declared as the performance ended. "Your species has shown us that our understanding of universal harmonics was incomplete. We believe perfection lay in mathematical precision alone, but you've shown us that true harmony requires both precision and variation, both structure and soul. Elena saw tears in the eyes of several human musicians. The drachnids, too, were visibly moved, their scales displaying color patterns never before recorded in their diplomatic interactions. We came to your world seeking territorial expansion, Xerix continued. Instead, we have found something far more valuable. The third resonance is not a myth. It is what happens when different approaches to universal harmony combined to create something greater than either could achieve alone. As the Drachnid delegation prepared to return to their ship, they made an unprecedented offer. They wanted to establish a permanent cultural exchange program. The empire that had arrived to conquer Earth now sought to learn from it. We should maintain appropriate security protocols, Marcus whispered to Elena as they watched the Drachnids depart. This seems almost too good to be true. Elena understood his caution, but she'd seen something profound in that day's exchange. The universe is vast, she replied. Maybe sometimes the best way to guard against threats isn't to build bigger weapons, but to create something so beautiful that it transforms potential enemies into partners in discovery. The Drachnid ship departed that evening, its crystalline surface now pulsing with new patterns influenced by Earth's music. And in concert halls and laboratories around the world, humans began preparing for the next phase of this unexpected partnership, one that would reshape both species' understanding of the universe and their place in it. 6 months after the first musical exchange, the Drachnid Empire was experiencing something unprecedented in its 50,000-year history: cultural upheaval. Dr. Elena Santos stood in the observation deck of the Crystalline Academy of Harmonics, watching Drachnid youth perform their own interpretation of human jazz. Their crystalline instruments, traditionally used only for precise military communications, now produced wild improvisations that would have been considered heretical just months ago. The High Council is deeply concerned, Harmony Master Xerix confided, their scales shifting through patterns of worry. The younger generation is abandoning traditional harmonic forms. Some are even attempting to modify their resonance crystals to produce what they call earth tones. Elena watched as a young Drachnid soloist coaxed sounds from their crystal that mimicked a saxophone's wail. They're not abandoning their traditions, she corrected gently. They're expanding them, just as Earth's music evolved through cultural exchange and experimentation. But not everyone in the Empire welcomed this evolution. Reports came daily of conservative factions demanding an end to human influence. Some military commanders claimed that exposure to Earth music was weakening their warriors' combat focus. Others argued that the third resonance represented a natural evolution of Drachnid potential. The tension came to a head during the first Galactic Harmony Festival. The grand amphitheater on the Drachnid capital world hosted musicians from both species. Traditional Drachnid crystal singers shared the stage with human orchestras. The performance began with ancient Drachnid military hymns, their mathematical precision filling the space with crystalline clarity. Then came the controversial moment, a hybrid piece composed jointly by human and Drachnid musicians. As the first notes filled the amphitheater, something extraordinary happened. The very architecture of the building, constructed of the same resonant crystals as Drachnid ships, began to respond. Colors rippled through the walls in patterns never before seen in Drachnid architecture. The buildings are singing, gasped a young Drachnid in the audience, their scales flickering with joy. Throughout the capital, similar phenomena occurred. Structures that had stood for millennia, designed to resonate only with authorized military frequencies, were awakening to new harmonies. Conservative military leaders tried to shut down the performance, claiming it threatened architectural integrity. But they were too late. Recordings had already spread throughout the empire. Young Drachnids everywhere began experimenting with their own musical forms, combining their species' natural crystalline harmonics with Earth's emotional resonance. "We're losing control," warned Supreme Commander Fricks in an emergency council session. "These new harmonies are disrupting the very foundations of our society." "No," countered Xerix, their scales now showing the deep purple of conviction. We're not losing control, we're gaining understanding. The third resonance isn't just about music. It's about recognizing that true strength comes from harmony between order and chaos, between tradition and innovation. The debate raged through Drachnid society, but the most powerful argument came from an unexpected source: the Empire's own technology. Ships whose crystals had been exposed to Earth music began performing better than their traditionally tuned counterparts. Their energy efficiency improved, and their crews reported enhanced cognitive function and emotional stability. Scientists discovered that the combination of Drachnid precision and human musical expression created resonance patterns that accessed higher functions of crystalline technology. What had begun as a cultural exchange was becoming a technological revolution. Elena found herself working with Drachnid engineers to develop new applications for these hybrid harmonics. Your species' emotional connection to music, one engineer explained, their scales showing academic excitement. It introduces variables we never considered. It's like we've been using only perfect squares, and you've shown us irrational numbers. But the most profound changes were personal. Young Drachnids began gathering in underground harmony halls, experimenting with new forms of musical expression. They combined their species' natural ability to manipulate crystalline frequencies with human concepts of emotional expression. The result was something entirely new, not human music, not traditional Drachnid harmonics, but a true fusion of both cultures. We always believed that perfect order was the highest achievement, a Drachnid student confided to Elena after a particularly moving performance. But your music has shown us that true perfection includes imperfection, that harmony can arise from apparent discord. As Elena prepared to return to Earth for consultations, she received a message that would change everything. The Drachnid High Council, faced with undeniable evidence of music's transformative power, had made a historic decision. They were reorganizing their society around principles derived from the third resonance, shifting focus from military expansion to cultural exchange and harmonic innovation. Your species has given us something we never knew we needed, Zurix told her during their farewell meeting. For millennia, we sought to impose order on the galaxy. Now we understand that true order emerges from the harmony of different voices singing together. The revolution wasn't just in Drachnid society. Humanity, too, was being transformed by the exchange, gaining deeper understanding of the mathematical patterns underlying reality. Together, the two species were beginning to unlock secrets of the universe that neither could have discovered alone. And this was just the beginning. As news of the Drachnid transformation spread, other spacefaring civilizations began to take notice. The galaxy was about to discover that Earth's greatest export wasn't technology or weapons. It was the power of music to bridge differences and transform societies. The inauguration of the first Galactic Harmonic Orchestra marked a milestone in interstellar relations. In the newly constructed Crystal Resonance Hall on Mars, Dr. Elena Santos watched as human and Drachnid musicians took their places on stage. The hall itself was a testament to their collaboration. Built with Drachnid crystal technology, but designed to accommodate the acoustic principles of Earth's great concert venues. Every major spacefaring civilization has sent representatives, Marcus whispered, reviewing the guest list on his tablet. Even species that have been in conflict with the Drachnid Empire for centuries. The orchestra itself was a sight that would have seemed impossible a year ago. Drachnid crystal singers stood alongside human violinists. Traditional crystalline resonance chambers had been modified to harmonize with Earth instruments. The conductor's podium was shared by harmony master Zurix and renowned human conductor Sarah Chen. As the musicians prepared for their first piece, Elena reflected on how far they'd come. What had started as a desperate defense of Earth had evolved into something that was reshaping galactic society. The third resonance wasn't just a musical phenomenon anymore. It had become a philosophy of cooperation and mutual growth. The performance began with a piece specifically commissioned for the occasion, Echoes of First Contact. It started with the harsh, militant harmonies that had once powered Drachnid warships, then gradually transformed them through human musical influences into something entirely new. The crystal walls of the hall pulsed with colors that matched the emotional journey of the music. In the audience, Elena noticed representatives from various species displaying signs of deep emotional response. A delegation from the Merid Collective, known for their strictly logical approach to diplomacy, swayed gently with the music. The crystalline Orcs, traditional rivals of the Drachnids, emitted harmonious light patterns that matched the orchestra's rhythms. During the intermission, Elena overheard fragments of conversation that confirmed the music's diplomatic impact. Species that had been locked in territorial disputes for generations were discussing cultural exchange programs. Military commanders spoke of converting warship production facilities into acoustic research centers. "We've spent millennia trying to understand each other through words and treaties," a Merid diplomat observed, their mathematical language softened by emotion. "Perhaps we should have been listening to each other's songs instead." The second half of the concert featured an innovative use of technology developed through human-drachnid collaboration. Quantum harmonic projectors allowed the audience to not just hear the music, but to experience the emotional and mathematical patterns underlying it. For many species, it was their first experience of music as humans understood it, not just as sound, but as a bridge between heart and mind. A particularly moving moment came when a young Drachnid soloist performed a crystal song about their experience learning human music. The piece captured the transformation of their society, the initial fear of change, the discovery of new possibilities, and finally the joy of creative freedom. As they played, their scales shifted through colors that many in the audience had never seen in a Drachnid before, expressing emotions their species had traditionally suppressed. "We're witnessing the birth of a new form of diplomacy," Xerix commented during the final rehearsal, one based not on power or protocol, but on shared creativity and emotional truth. The concert's finale was its most ambitious piece, a collaborative composition that incorporated musical elements from every major galactic civilization. Human melodies intertwined with Drachnid crystal songs, while Merid mathematical progressions provided structure for Orcs' light harmonies. The result was more than music. It was proof that diversity could create something greater than uniformity. As the last notes faded, the audience sat in stunned silence before erupting in expressions of appreciation unique to each species. Drachnids displayed colors of joy. Humans applauded. Merids calculated standing ovation algorithms, and Orcs created spontaneous light sculptures. The success of the first galactic harmonic orchestra led to immediate practical results. Within days, plans were announced for similar venues throughout known space. The Drachnid Empire, once focused on military expansion, began repurposing its shipyards to build cultural exchange centers and acoustic research facilities. But perhaps most significantly, the concert demonstrated a new way for civilizations to interact. Species that had viewed each other with suspicion or hostility for generations found common ground in musical appreciation. The universal language of mathematics, expressed through the emotional power of music, created understanding where traditional diplomacy had failed. "We came to Earth as conquerors," a Drachnid military commander admitted during the post-concert reception, their scales showing the deep blue of wisdom gained through experience. "Instead, you conquered us, not with weapons, but with beauty. You showed us that true power lies not in domination, but in harmony." As Elena prepared the first draft of her report on the concert's diplomatic impact, she realized that humanity's greatest contribution to galactic civilization wasn't our technology or our military capability. It was our understanding that creativity and emotion weren't weaknesses to be suppressed, but strengths to be celebrated. That the most powerful forces in the universe weren't the ones that dominated, but the ones that brought people together. 5 years after Earth's first contact with the Drachnid Empire, Dr. Elena Santos stood in the grand atrium of the newly inaugurated Galactic Arts Academy on Luna. Through the vast crystal dome, Earth hung like a blue jewel against the black of space, a constant reminder of where this remarkable journey had begun. The Academy itself was a testament to how far they'd come. Its architecture blended Drachnid crystalline technology with human artistic sensibilities. Classrooms designed for everything from traditional Earth instruments to advanced harmonic physics filled its halls. Students from dozens of species study together, each bringing their own unique approach to the universal language of music. The latest enrollment figures are in, Marcus announced, now serving as the Academy's Chief of Interspecies Relations. We have students from 37 different civilizations this term. Even the Isolationist Confederation sent representatives. Elena smiled, remembering how it all started with a desperate attempt to defend Earth. Now, the Academy stood as the galaxy's premier institution for both artistic and scientific study of what they'd come to call universal harmonics, the intersection of mathematics, music, and emotion that had transformed interstellar society. Harmony Master Xerix, their scales now permanently tinted with the deep blue of wisdom, joined them at the observation window. The Council of Civilizations has approved the expansion proposal, they announced. Similar academies will be established in every major sector of known space. The transformation of galactic society had been profound. The Drachnid Empire, once focused on military expansion, had reorganized itself around cultural exchange and harmonic research. Their warships had been converted into traveling performance venues and research vessels. The crystalline technology that once powered weapons now served to create music that could bridge the gaps between species. But perhaps most remarkably, the influence of Earth's music had spread far beyond its original scope. Species that had never shown interest in artistic expression began developing their own musical traditions. The Merid Collective, known for their pure logic, had created a new form of mathematical music that combined rigid structure with emotional expression. The Orcs had transformed their light-based communication into complex musical performances. We've received another transmission from the frontier, Marcus said, pulling up a holographic display. 3 more previously unknown civilizations requesting cultural exchange programs. They say they heard the harmonies. The harmonies he referred to were the echoes of human-influenced music now traveling through space. Ships equipped with the new quantum harmonic projectors spread Earth's musical heritage wherever they went. Some claimed these harmonies had awakened dormant artistic potential in species across the galaxy. In one of the Academy's main performance halls, Elena paused to watch a remarkable sight. A young Drachnid teaching the human student the principles of crystal singing, while a Merid observer calculated the mathematical patterns of their harmony. In another room, a human jazz quartet improvised with a group of Orcs-like sculptors, creating a performance that combined sound and spectacle in ways never before imagined. Sometimes I wonder, Xerix mused, their scales shifting to contemplative patterns. What would have happened if we had simply conquered Earth as planned? We would have gained territory, but missed the true treasure your species had to offer. Elena thought about how close they'd come to conflict, and how music had shown them a different path. Perhaps that's the real lesson in all of this, she replied. The greatest discoveries often come not from imposing our will on others, but from being open to new ways of seeing and hearing the universe. The Academy's success had led to changes that went far beyond music. The principles of harmony and collaboration that students learned in their studies began to influence galactic politics and commerce. Species that had once competed for resources now looked for ways to create abundance through cooperation. The third resonance had become a philosophy that influenced everything from diplomatic protocols to spacecraft design. As the day drew to a close, Elena made her way to the Academy's central performance space for the evening's concert. The program featured premiere performances of works that would have been impossible just a few years ago. Pieces that combined the musical traditions of multiple species into something entirely new. The final piece was a composition created collaboratively by students from every species represented at the Academy. As the music filled the hall, Elena noticed something extraordinary. The crystalline walls, the students' instruments, even the space itself seemed to resonate with the harmony. It was as if the universe itself was singing along. You know what the most beautiful part is? Marcus whispered as they listened. This is just the beginning. Every new species that joins us brings their own voice to the chorus. The music will never stop growing. Looking out at the assembled musicians, human and alien, biological and crystalline, all creating something beautiful together, Elena understood that humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy hadn't been our technology or our resilience or even our music itself. It had been our ability to show that differences weren't obstacles to be overcome, but opportunities to create something greater than any one species could achieve alone. The universal chorus would continue to grow, each new voice adding its own unique harmony to the endless song of creation. And somewhere out in the vast darkness between the stars, new civilizations were hearing the music for the first time, preparing to add their own voices to the greatest collaboration in galactic history. As the final notes faded away, Elena knew that while the story of first contact had ended, the symphony it started would play on forever, growing richer and more complex with each passing year and each new voice that joined the eternal song of the stars.